Welcome back, everybody. Now, last Friday, the TTPS held a press conference led by Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith. During this conference, mention was made of a cyber and social media unit with the TTPS. Joining us to discuss more about this unit and its responsibility is Sergeant Daniel Hernandez, Head Cyber and Social Media Unit of Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Good morning and welcome.
Morning to you. Morning to you.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
So good to be here this morning.
Same, likewise. Now, can you tell us about this cyber and social media unit?
Well, the cyber and social media unit was established previously known as the cybercrime unit. And due to the advent of social media, there was a rebranding as of due 52 of 2020. And the cyber and social media unit now has a remit to cover instances of crimes happening on the social media platform, as well as our previous remit, which covers forensics with digital devices, assisting officers where crimes are committed and there's a digital element that is present. So, that's a little bit about what we do.
Now, in the wake of the entire election season, there was an explosion almost of a lot of commentary on social media that many of which were racist. How does the law treat with racism?
So, firstly, let it be very clear as it relates to the cyber and social media unit. We provide an unbiased approach when it comes to investigations and the reports we submit. It must be stated that we don't be biased towards one particular race or a political persuasion or anything that would put somebody off. We don't do that. But as it relates to the law and racism, it must be clear that all laws in Trinidad and Tobago don't really deal with racism strictly. Sometimes when it comes to freedom of speech, as you would have seen during the election, it is enshrined in our constitutional right. Our constitution is enshrined as a right for us. But it must, I want to echo the words of the Commissioner and by extension the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ford, where it must be coupled with responsible behavior. And this in turn makes this right a qualified right, in terms of you having the right to your right to speech. However, when we look at the Organization of American States, they give a breakdown of what is racism. We recognize racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and all relatives occur on the grounds of race, descent, or national or ethnic origin. Victims can suffer multiple or aggravated forms of discrimination. And it's related on the grounds such as sex, language, religion. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the Equal Opportunities Act, Chapter 2203. And this Act, Chapter 7, covers, what some of the conduct that is related. So we may not have a direct law that speaks to racism, but we have laws that speak to the conduct, and this is what we will look at. So it speaks about a person shall not otherwise than in public do any act reasonably likely in all circumstances to offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate another person or other groups of persons. Inside of there, Section C speaks to which is done with the intention of inciting gender, racial, or religious hatred. So this is covered under that Equal Opportunities Act. And inside that said act have the establishment of the Equal Opportunity Commission. And this commission has some broad responsibilities. Its remit would cover work towards elimination of discrimination, because racism is a form of discrimination, like other forms of discrimination, such as We have sexual harassment, discrimination in relation to our religion, and in some instances, goods and services have discrimination. So it is a form of discrimination. And one of the things that they are responsible for is to develop, conduct, and foster research and educational programs, other programs for the purpose of eliminating discrimination and promoting equal opportunity and good relations between persons of different status. So in Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, you would remember growing up, you have your friends, different ethnicity, and that's how it used to be. So we don't really have laws that cover that. But however, the conduct of it are covered in other pieces of legislation.
So, Sergeant Hernandez, morning. I just want to find out, are there any penalties for these discrimination things that you just spoke about in the Equal Opportunities Act?
So what I've seen there is the commission is the one who sets up what are, depending on the type of issues that are reported to them, they are the one that determines what penalties. When you go to the act, basically it kind of resides within the ambit of the commission, the 5 commissioners that are set up there.
Okay.
So the act speaks to they having that power to adjudicate over such matters.
All right.
But in terms of what you asked there, it may require some deeper research.
All right, no problem. Understood. But I wanted to ask as well about, libel and slander. We always see people go into court for, that sort of thing and bringing down of character and that kind of stuff. I wanted to find out, in terms of the cyberbullying and the racism, if people let's say calling names and slandering somebody's name or reputation, does the law deal with that?
So just like the racism, what you're speaking about there is basically harassment in a sense. And yes, it is covered in some instances where persons can, on a civil level, they are able to go and deal with it. However, I want to draw attention, and as you raise those items, to the offenses against the person, Chapter 1108. And in harassment, because again, we look at the conduct of the perpetrator, and it speaks to harassment of a person includes alarming the person or causing the person distress by engaging in a course of conduct. So you see, this comes back up again, a course of conduct. And Section 30A covers making contact with the person, whether by gesture, directly, verbally, by telephone, computer, post, or in any other way, giving material, offensive material to the person, or even leaving it where it would be found, given to or brought to the attention of the person. Now, inside of this act, it says a person who pursues a course of conduct, like what you have raised there, which amounts to harassment, and which he knows or ought reasonably to know amounts to harassment of the other, is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $2,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months. Now, I just wanted to add in a little piece based on what you would have highlighted, based on what you would have seen after the elections and certain comments that were made on social media and certain posts that were made. The Section 30B goes a little in depth. It says a person who is accused of conduct which would constitute an offense under Section 30A, which we spoke about earlier, and which causes the other person to fear that violence will be used against him, and the person whose course of conduct is in question knows or to know that his conduct will cause the other person so to fear, commits an offense, and is liable on conviction on indictment to a fine of $10,000 and imprisonment for 5 years, and on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000 and imprisonment for 6 months. So it's clearly covered in that aspect of harassment, where persons who choose to use the social media platforms to do certain things, you are seeing here in the law that these things are basically covered. There are other acts such as the Sedition Act, and the Sedition Act even goes in depth into other aspects, inciting violence and other things like that, which also carries penalties for such behavior.
And I want to chime in a little bit here, Sergeant Daniel Hernandez. When it comes to the to this law being enforced, say for instance, I'm the victim of racist comments and cyberbullying online. How do I, have the persons held accountable and, potentially charged and indicted?
So what we try to, bring to the public is the first thing that we ask is that you make a report. And now with the advent of technology, the TTPS has pushed the envelope, and we are now having reports being done online. You have the police app, and you could come directly to a station. You could also come to the cyber and social media unit where reports can be made. And what we try to ask persons to do is when you are bringing information, you bring documentation relative to what you are reporting. Now, when you bring these things to our attention, especially where we have a situation where persons are feeling aggrieved and are feeling mistreated, we take a very strong view, that persons cannot be treated in such manner. They can come, make the reports, and we will try within our remit to investigate these forms of discrimination or bullying or however you want to class it, harassment, and we investigate it and provide investigators with an investigative approach that helps them in the solving of these particular incidents.
Now, when you say investigation, and this tells me that there's an entire process. So say, for instance, I was a victim of such an act, and I came with documentation and proof. How long will this process usually take?
I try my best to be very clear that you don't want to put a tight time frame on when an investigation will begin. Sometimes we have to get assistance through the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. We have to get information from foreign companies. We have to do proper investigations because you don't want to, look at a person and based on what somebody just bring, you just go at it. You have to investigate it. So I don't really like to put a specific time frame. What I am saying with the remit of the Commissioner of Police, where he's pushing heavily to bring into bear the importance of using technology in the solving of crimes. And that now brings us to that point where we are going to use all the powers within the TTPS to solve these particular crimes.
I have a question, Sergeant Daniel Hernandez. I just wanted to find out, do you think that the Constitution, the way it's set up, the law, that the way that it's set up now, does it aid or does it limit what the TTPS can do in these types of situations? Do we need to look at revamping a bit?
Yeah, excellent question. Once I heard you right there, right now we are sitting waiting for the cybercrime bill to be brought to Parliament. And I would have sat on different committees where we are trying to trash out and get things right in relation to that. I am throwing a plug, and what you are just saying there is so true. We want more teeth, and the bill will open that door where we can actually do more. And what has been happening, as you saw, I have explained earlier on, you have seen where we have to use other pieces of legislation to cover some of the conduct related to some of these offenses. But with the bringing forth of the cybercrime bill, which we are looking forward to, that will open a door where the police service can have a little more teeth in dealing with some of these issues. But as we stand, that doesn't mean because we're waiting on the cybercrime bill that we won't use other pieces of legislation, which were, written for other situations, but we can use it in the interim, and we will use it in order to deal with these sort of offenses.
Just if you, I don't know if you have the numbers on you, but I am curious as to so far since the existence of the cyber and social media unit, I mean the rebranded version of it, how many arrests or charges have you all been able to get out so far, approximately?
I don't. Excellent question. I don't have those figures before me right now, but I'm certainly sure I will be able to put those figures together and have it, sent to you. But I want you to be aware. There's another side as it relates to the cyber and social media, which is the cyber side, which we deal with forensics. And in the forensics, we deal with devices. And most of the crimes that are being solved, especially the murders, you find it's related to that side also. So it has the social media side and it has the forensic side, where digital forensics is the bread and butter of the unit. And that provides information, digital reports and stuff on devices. And that has been really, really tremendous in terms of getting charges laid in relation to some of these heinous crimes.
Okay. Well, I guess thank you very much, Sergeant Daniel Hernandez. This morning, I think it's very interesting, and I learned a lot about the...
Yeah, so did I, and understanding the correlation between the cybercrime unit and the law when it comes to what can be indictable and what is not, and there are certain other laws that actually are related to the issues such as harassment and such. So,
and we also need the laws to be adjusted and updated. That's one of the things I'm definitely taking away, is that going forward, I think that our constitution obviously needs to continuously evolve and update with the time that we're living in. So I want to say thank you again very much to Sergeant Daniel Hernandez, the head of the Cyber and Social Media Unit at the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Sergeant, and for sharing all the information with us.
The pleasure is all mine. I thank you for having me. You can check on me anytime in the future. I'm glad to share.
I'll hold it to that.
I'll come back for them numbers.